All right. Hello, welcome, Rec Denver. There are a lot of new faces here tonight. That's awesome. Old faces that haven't been here in a while, Pete. Um, so, last event of the year. Thank you guys for coming. Uh, pizza still left over. I don't want to take pizza home. I really don't like taking pizza home on the train. So, please. Um, So anyway, this is kind of a rehash of a talk that Ryan Florence gave at React Denver 4 years ago. It's actually a fairly common topic that comes up quite often, and that's hooks, like how hooks actually work. Right now, we know them as to be this magical use state, and congratulations, functions now have state. How does that actually work? Um, we'll cover some how to do some custom hooks too. So I don't actually prepare slides because I'm bad at slides, and yeah. So I'm going to start this real quick. But I built a awesome super counter. Who here has ever built a counter? Pretty sure it's the hello world of JavaScript land, right? After you do the hello world. Oh, Vite is already running. Hang on. All right. Yay. I can click and I can reset. Congratulations. That's pretty much all we care about here. So we have state. I know. I think we've all learned that it's like, oh, it's just this magic function. You give it an initial variable and you have a setter and you just move on. I did actually write notes for myself, but that doesn't work out for me all that well. So what happens if we get rid of state? Well, red squiggly lines tell us bad things happen. So what is this? A TypeScript gives us a nice little helper that it's a function that takes an initial state and returns that state and a function that happens to obfuscate that state. And we're getting nice inference that it's a number. So how do we write this ourselves? Read that. So we know it's a function. So let's make state. I'm not going to call it use, so it's not confusing. So we're going to make that equal to a function. We get this initial state. Well, and we return a tuple. Anyone know what a tuple is? What's a tuple?
Just
who here knows it as a tuple?
An array with two values.
It's an array of known size. Normally it's 2, but a tuple can be 3. It's defined. There's a really good story about why hooks return tuples and not objects. Objects are keyed. This is why use query and use redux and all of these are data loading. And then you have to recast it to be my actual data that I care about because data is too anonymous. So we're going to return state and some kind of set state. Let's define those in a minute. So let's say state is equal to initial state on set state. What's set state? Well, it's a function that wants use state, and it's just going to update state. So we can't do that, can we? No, of course not. So I'm going to make my state out here. I'm going to turn off TypeScript as well because I'm not going to type this very well as quickly as I would like. So imagine this is typed. All right.
Is it possible to zoom in one more time?
Yes, I certainly can. Fast refresh.
Can you zoom your voice as well?
No. Get my terminal back. I have to kill the server and restart it. So we want to track state globally, right? This is React is putting all of your hooks, all of your state in a scoped variable. It's scoped to React. That's why it's react.use state. And we just destructure it off the React package. So there's a giant map somewhere in React. And it's very important why we have rules such as React ESLint rules. You can't call them out of order. The map is not smart enough to know that you're not calling a specific hook. It's more complicated than that, but so we want to make this state equal to, let's just say that. We're going to say state equal to push. I really can type most days. So we're getting there. You made it in. How did you make it in? All right. Thank you for. All right. So we have this use state. I'm going to create another one. Let's make an error. All right, so now we have error and let's make it straight. This is being called twice now. So this function, you can't do state push. Then you're going to end up with something like state bracket 0. It's going to be a tuple of state and set state. Then as soon as we call make state again, we're going to get state 1. Great. How do we get that back? So this is a function component. We're familiar with these now. They're invoked, and then it's a function and it's done, right? There is no internal state to functions, or external state, I should say. So calling a function use state is just a caller, and it returns something, and that's what's used in your component. These are app in this case would be considered a pure component, right? There's no props coming in. State is just representation of render. So we have a few more problems to occur. So we have state. Let's create a call counter. We're going to make it equal to -1. There's a reason for that in a moment. I'm going to make this ID equal to ++ call counter. So make it -1, arrays are indexed to 0. So first time this function fires off, it's going to make ID equal to 0. And that's what we want. Thank you, autocomplete and Copilot, for trying to complete all my work for me. Ta-da. State ID. Well, we want it to be equal to new state, right? Let's make this couple. We're going to just quickly set it like this. Let's return. So we're going to return this initial state. So whatever was started with, we haven't actually mutated yet. So we're going to return that initial state, the first render. Have this ID for the call counter. So now we can call make state as many times as we want. And it's tracked by this ID. It's just the ID is an incrementer, and it's array, so it's great index. So fantastic. Change these real quick to make state. That. All right. So who knows what the next biggest problem we're going to have is? How do we tell React that there's a state change?
Who's effect? No, sorry.
No.
Grade step.
How do your components even get to the screen? We have to render. Well, I have to tell React to render again. So we're going to actually render with hooks. I'm going to move this here. Ah. Okay, seriously? I'm used to a different keyboard. Under Q, if hooks. There we go. So we're almost there. React, okay, that is there. So all I'm doing here is instead of calling React create root render on its own, I'm just wrapping it with a function because we need this. We need to tell every time we call this set state, we need to tell it, hey, you need to render. So now when you call set state, the render function happens. This is all internal to React. You don't think about this. This is why it's magic, right? Hooks are magic. We've been taught the magic part, but not actually like how this works. So we're very close. What happens if we already have state? Right? We're not changing it. We're not calling it set state. Thank you again, autocomplete. If we have a state at this position, let's return it. Let's see how I did. On the same port. Yes, it's gonna want it to be TypeScript. Don't do this, and Bishop on recording will yell at me for doing this. We're gonna do the really bad thing. Okay, unknown. we'll come back to that one. And let's say that new state is unknown. State is going to be an array of unknown and a function that returns. We'll say unknown. Comment expected. All right. I'm not doing good here. Bishop, help me.
You state pass and any.
What's it show when you hover over it?
Yeah, it's state. It's now telling me it wants to be a const, but
You're just doing a push on it, right?
Can you try making it in any array?
I got it.
It's any.
Okay. So now, build the server, restart the server. Can you do this? I don't know if you can do it this way. No, you can.
Can you cast make state to a number?
Yeah. As array number of function. This is why TypeScript is awesome, but also sucks sometimes. Arg number. Count any.
It returns a number as well instead of void.
Now it's returning a function. It's a number that's returning function. Right?
You still have an open left parenthesis to the left of the second number.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna do it the
I mean, just make it any.
yeah. It doesn't like any TypeScript is yelling at me.
Just keeps moving the error down.
Yeah. Get count as type of unknown. Okay. As no. Seriously.
It's saying that if you know something about it, then it's not unknown. So instead of unknown, try any, because any gets around that rule.
Yeah, and the problem is any. Just turn off the
there up above.
Just ignore everything.
and
Yeah, in the definition, right? Yeah, now it's happy.
okay. So all right.
Okay, for live coding.
Yay, live coding. This happened to me in June as well, if you're here in June. So, not quite there yet. Not doing anything. And I'm not sure if we look at console.
Make the text bigger.
Yeah, this is just a console error talking about create root, which is a method I cannot use. Let's make sure that worked. No, no error. That's good. What did I? Ah, yes. I know what I missed. Okay. Really? Unknown is not assignable to type any.
So and it's supposed to be
We're just gonna bash it really hard with a stick.
Yay.
I'm really good with TypeScript normally, but these are obviously the issues that I would normally have like an hour to spend on and not 15 minutes. So
Copilot answer it.
yes, Copilot definitely could probably figure it out. So we have initial state. We've got this ID. We're checking to see if state exists. If not, or if so, just go ahead and return it. We have this tuple. We haven't actually pushed anything into this thing yet. Refresh. Uh-oh. What happened? Is that what I called it? Call counter. Okay. This should be it. If not, egg on my face and egg on my face. Okay. Oh,
Just change the name to debugging.
Yeah, we're gonna also just do it this way. Because this way works really well too. I already wrote this once in preparing for this. So nothing really fancy, all different here. We have state hook instead of use state. So I'm not trying to trick you in redirecting state hooks. State hook down here, exactly what we just did. Initial state, set value, all that stuff. Render with hooks. This is the old React DOM render, which I think is what the new way was tripping me up. But go over here. There go my lights. And
You're like jump in the corner over there. Sorry, I did it last time.
yeah, I don't know if that works.
Okay.
I'll just walk around because that's how. Yeah, there's it works. You just sat static like me. So, only thing I did differently in here is let's go ahead and do something with this error message. I have the handle click on the click me. Hey, if we try and go past 9, so this is use state. Okay. You type errors. So I just replicated in what 20 lines of code what hooks do. Awesome. But it's not magic. It's a function. I mean, if it wasn't for TypeScript getting in my way, it's a vanilla function. You can write.
Functions are magic, Chad.
All functions are magic depending on what level of a boot camp you're in. Yes. So that's this first one I really wanted to primarily talk about was this state hook. Like this is use state under the hood. Now, if you go read the actual source code for React, it is not like this at all. It is very different because they're doing magic. They're doing dispatch and all this stuff inside. So I only pretend to really know. I really did look. Talk about code location. They have about 700 files, which make up React. It's all over the place. All over the place. So, all right. Congratulations. I'm not writing use effect or use callback or use memo or use ref. I'm not writing those, but you get that idea. So what else can we do? I'm going to undo all of this since I don't know where really how I got here. I don't have it's not a GitHub repo, so it's not. Yes. If I undo too far, then I'm doing myself.
I schedule everything myself.
Yeah. Congratulations, we're back with uState. So, yay. And I can click as much as I want. So, let's talk about composing hooks. So, we're going to call this use count. And we're going to go ahead and import use state React. And I'm going to export default function. Hey, thank you. I just rewrote use state with a new name called use count. Now, let's do something a little bit better. Let's say, let's have a use effect. Thank you. We're going to say count or const timer ID. Hey. Set timeout. Don't do this, by the way. This is a very, very bad idea. So we're going to call every time the count changes, second leader is going to change again. And now you know how infinite loops happen. But we're going to just try it anyway. So we're going to go over here, import count from count. And we're going to take the initial count. Let's see. Ah, yeah, let's not return it as an object, return it as a tuple. I like tuples. Tuples are awesome. I'll that in a second. So count is a number or I'm confused. Oh, that's the dispatch. So why is it coming back as count as number or dispatch? All right, screw it. It's an object.
Oh,
Okay. So hey, I have an app that drives itself. Just great. It keeps counting. Now I can reset it and it's gonna keep counting. So the idea here is that's just adding another hook into the mix. A very powerful pattern that I've seen many times before is co-locating all of your state setters in a hook, and then you have one hook in your component, and that has an object that is the component state, and you probably use reducer. We'll use dispatch as your state setter. Instead of having 30 hooks in your file, you have one. Debugging gets a little harder. If you've ever used React Dev Tools and you've looked for hooks, when you abstract them away like that, it gets wonky fast. But again, hooks are magic. I have this as a recording from Ryan Florence. He's a much better speaker than I am. I'm a terrible speaker. So if you want to watch that, it's on React Denver. It's about an hour into the video, but he writes exactly the same thing I just wrote, minus TypeScript. So it worked for him. Composing hooks, like I said, just I have the use state, I have the use effect, but how many times do we have fans of server will render or const data loading equals use query? I mean, who here uses rec query?
he does.
Yeah. Awesome fetch wrapper. But now what happens if you have a component that does 5 API calls? I have to have 5 use queries. And what happens if you have dependent queries? So I have nesting. See how quickly this can get out of hand. If you compose it all the way into a custom hook, then your component where you're actually doing JSX now is FYI, here's state and how to update state, and here's your component. So now you can actually read split logic from render. They're still the same, but this is going to terribly error because I don't have any of these packages installed, but you get the idea. So that's pretty much all I really wanted to talk about. Hooks are fantastic tools. If you came from class components, you'll realize how much hooks made life so much better. If you ever have to debug someone else's class components, you'll realize this dot anything sucks. This dot component will update. Component should update. Component did update. Like, how many component methods are there? There's 7. I remember this because I was stoked when they came out with use air boundaries, and component did catch was released. It's my only class component I have left. So hooks are really neat. The React official docs, the new docs are awesome covering hooks. They have playgrounds, so you can try What happens if I call a use effect inside of a loop? It won't work. ESLint will yell at you. But what happens if you don't have ESLint running? I don't honestly know. Try it. Call use effect in a loop and just see it absolutely absurd how your JavaScript thread is going to be trashed within mere milliseconds. Yeah, that's it. That's all I had. Thank you. I need to. I will take questions, but I have to plug in because I let my laptop decide how much it should charge on its own. So it was at 50% when I got here. Questions? Anything I can answer while I'm doing this? No? Awesome. No questions.
Yeah, one question. So like use ref doesn't really work well with change state.
So use ref is a very powerful hook that's very misunderstood. It's not for a renderable state. It's for tracking independent things. So like I had the app, it was an image grid. So think of Flickr, right? But I'm loading thousands of images. And if you've ever tried to load more than 30 things at once, you realize Chrome and every browser stops you at 6, and then it goes in the queue. What happens if you have a notification system in the background? That API call goes out, it's queued. You're never going to get that message. So I wrote my own queue because why not? So I had a ref on the queue to know where the concurrency was. So I limited the images to 5 on the domain instead of 6. So now I had one open socket to do other work. That's an idea. Refs are also, you can put them on DOM element. And now you have the ref as an actual node. So document.get element by tag name or whatever you want, it's an actual node now. So ref.current.get bounding ref is a thing now. I mostly use refs for DOM node references. Refs are really good for tracking internal state logic to the JavaScript side, not UI representation, because use effect changes. Ref dot current now equals 2 will not cause re-render. So changing a ref is not visible. It immediately changes, and the next time the component re-renders, it's just new value. Timeouts, if you have a timeout, is a good example. I don't know why you would do timeouts. I think the closest one I did with timeouts is an activity. Because I didn't have cookies for sessions, I just had a GWT, so I had to time it out. So that was fun. How far do I go?
Right there, I think.
I know I think it should be that one. There it is. Use ref. Go read the docs on it because I'm not going to do it very good justice. Ref is used in a couple of different situations that are actually independent of each other. Again, with DOM ref versus just holding on to life state, not component state. And don't use forward refs. So React.forward ref, you can make a component that forwards ref, just pass the ref as a prop. you don't need to use forward ref. I don't like. I'm sure someone on the recording is going to comment on the video at some point and tell me why you should use forward ref. There's some esoteric reason. I've yet to run into it. So the new hooks. There's two new hooks that I just started using with Next. Use form state and use form status. Those are really cool hooks. Can't use them both in the same component. Like form state is in the parent, and then form status you would put in a child. So like form status would be setting the loading indicator on a submit button, whereas form state gives you your actual state and your state setter. So no more form on submit form data, wrapping everything on yourself and adding state for loading and state for error and all this stuff. You just use form state. Awesome. The one I know nothing about yet is use deferred value. I can imagine it's a thrown promise. It's like a build resolve, like a suspend boundary, but I've yet to find a use for it. So check it out. Any other questions? Adam?
Could you just quickly explain that render with hooks thing?
So your component, React is really good at rendering. That's what React is. It's just a data representation of what your UI looks like. At some point, I will ask somebody to do what is JSX in React, because JSX is not React.
I know that.
But the function that I wrote, make state, is not part of React. Therefore, React doesn't know that the state changed. So when you hit set state, the global scope state changes, but React doesn't know that happened. So the render with hook was just a way to say, hey, React, please render. Gotcha. And you can do this all you want on your own. You can, if you wrap your render in your index.js file at your root with a function and then call it, you can call it anywhere else and export it and say, you know what, I just want React to now render every millisecond because I'm bloodthirsty for memory. So that was me showing like use state and the hooks do this under the hood. It's part of the hook internals is whenever the state changes, call render. And I suggest reading some of the docs on render, how it works, like virtual DOM diffing and all that stuff, because obviously you don't want to hit a button here and have this tab over here re-render just because you didn't know what to do.
A random question. So if you want, this is just a random question, so
yeah,
I can talk about it afterwards. But if you wanted your React application to somehow listen to any data changes outside of the React root, so like above the DOM, for example. Do you have any ideas how do you do that?
So you have to get that information into React somehow. Our standby favorite is going to be use effect, and use effect go read from session storage, local storage, index DB, like something that's outside of the React tree. Unless React knows about it, a mutation to that is never going to update the tree. So an effect hook, use effect is short for use side effect. The side effect in applications is I don't know, something's going to happen and it will change and hopefully for the good. We've been seeing a lot of talk on Twitter, and yes, I'm calling it Twitter, how use effect is bad. Don't use effect. I'm like, you do realize use query, use SWR, use suspense, all of these things are using use effect. Like, without use effect, we can't do side effects. And so people say don't use it on Twitter is akin to saying don't use React. Let's all go roll vanilla JavaScript. I want document.query selector and find a button, add an on-click handler dynamically. Yeah. Let's go back to the old days. ES3. No asynchronous, no promises, callbacks. Everything is a callback. That's what I want. Is anyone familiar with jQuery?
Oh yeah.
That's where I started in software engineering. jQuery 1.3, and this is well before Bluebird promises were even a thing. So promises weren't even in recommended spec yet. So promises were not a thing. Everything was a callback. If you ever have written an XHR versus fetch, you know it has a load method, and that load method is a callback, and then that gets the data. And then you call back to something else. You end up with these trees deeply nested. Like, I had one file that was 80, 90 indents, and my indents are are two. So I had 180 characters of white space because of this callback. That's not a day I want to go back to. Callbacks suck.
What was the argument for not using use effects? What people are saying on Twitter. Is there an argument?
The argument is it's kind of twofold. One, it's very dangerous to use hooks without having ESLint there to hold your hand, because there is no runtime error if you call use effect with only one argument as the function. What happens if you give no dependency array to a use effect? It runs once, and you go, I didn't do what I wanted. What happens if you give it give it an empty array? It runs once. If you give it nothing, infinitely. And without ESLint to sit there and throw you a red error saying, hey, I expected a dependency array. You need to give me that. And also, by the way, here's the variables that you need to put in the dependency array. Thank you, ESLint. If you don't do that, if you don't have ESLint running, all of a sudden you're throwing up issues on GitHub saying, my API call is thrashing the thread because it's just infinitely calling. And someone's going to say, no, you threw up the dependency array. Oh, what is that? So that's one side. Use effect is meant for side effects. It's meant for API calls. And right now, so many people are on the SSR fetch before render bandwagon. So you don't render then fetch with an effect. You fetch and then pass props. Use SSR, so Next.js, Remix, any of these meta frameworks. They don't want you to use effects because they want you to get that data ahead of time and not send JavaScript down, parse it, make the API request back up to the server, get the data, come back down, re-render with the updated state again. That's a lot of people's argument about why you don't use effects. It's better to send hydrated HTML down, and that's it. And you can add event listeners if you want, and that'll send off another server mutation. Back to my PHP days. I was a PHP dev at one point about 15 years ago. I know it still has question marks everywhere, caret question mark, PHP. I haven't written PHP in a very long time. But this is back to the server days when React is just like, oh, by the way, I render. Your server does state, and that's what it's honestly meant for. I do like server-side render, I really do. But it's really hard as a front-end dev to go, I'm going to give up these reins to someone else to like, yeah, I could go on a diatribe about that, but it's mostly for the dependency arrays on callback, effect, memo, because there's nothing in the runtime that's going to yell at you and tell you did a bad thing. You could do if our arguments dot length equals 0 or 1, throw an error, but then you lose a lot of minification. Arguments is not a good idea to just type it. You don't get any real benefit out of just using arguments alone. Arguments as the keyword arguments, not just. Use ESLint. If you use hooks, use ESLint. It's free.
Use JavaScript, use ESLint.
Use JavaScript, use ESLint, use TypeScript. I thankfully don't see it anymore. People used to call JavaScript a toy language, and it's going to go away in a few years because it's not statically typed, it's not robust, memory management is and all this stuff, and like something is going to come along better. I don't know, we're 25 years into it now. I think JavaScript is here to stay, but it has to be backwards compatible. Did you know the blink tag still works for marquee in HTML? Because it's backwards compatible. Go throw in a blink tag instead of a paragraph tag, and your text is going to sit there like this. No control. It's just going to blink. Why? Someone thought it was cool back in HTML3 or HTML3, 3.1, I believe. Marquee, text just scrolls like a marquee sign. GeoCities, anybody? So everything is backwards compatible, so that's why.
Not quite, because used to you didn't even have to put a bar when you set your variable in JavaScript.
So, I mean, you can still use var.
No, you didn't even have to put a bar.
Yeah.
This is way better. Now, this may have been like an Internet Explorer.
As soon as we added use strict, which is now on by default, but use strict in ES3 made it so you had to use the keyword var. Now we have let and const. Does anyone actually really know the difference between those two?
Yeah. Const you can only set it once. Let you can redefine it.
Yes, but in the runtime, doesn't care. If you bypass the runtime check, there is no difference between let and const. Memory-wise, they're the same. Same thing with var. You can still use var. Just say screw it. I like typing 3 characters instead of 5. Everything's a var. I'll let TypeScript come in and enforce read-only. All right, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to stop the recording. We have about a half an hour to kind of hang out and chat. If anyone's hiring, like raise your hand. There's going to be people that want to talk to you. I think that's going to be mostly the opposite case. A lot of folks here are looking for a job, so that's usually the case for meetups. It's why you network. It's want a job.
What if I want to make friends?
Not here. No.
Yeah. Just kidding. We work on the internet. We have Discord for friends.
Seriously.
So, all right, killing the stream. Thanks everybody. And there's someone in the chat. Hopefully. Sockets. Yeah, sockets. You still need an effect to subscribe to the socket.
Yeah. Without doing my crazy jobs.
Anyway, see ya.
Yeah.
Stop the arrow. Stop. There we go.